I am Doug Friedman.
I am Kenzie Genest.
And this is Your Mental Breakdown,
the podcast.
Starring us.
Me and you.
You.
Well, really you.
Well,
and co-starring.
Sure. Co-starring?
I'm here.
Who are you?
I don't know. Who am I? Let's get really existential to start.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat. This is where I thrive, actually.
Right?
Let's do it. I think we have a similar thing, right? We're both very existentially minded as therapists.
Are we?
I think. Maybe I just copy everything that I hear you do.
What does that mean, though? That's just me getting existential.
Silence.
Crickets. Do we have a cricket sound effect? Can we put that in there?
What is existentialism?
I don't know.
Who am I? Well, for real, I am an associate marriage and family therapist.
That's right.
I guess there's that.
Yes.
I'm a therapist.
You are.
I can call myself a therapist.
You sure can.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm living the dream, really. I actually mean that. And it sounds sarcastic, but I've been thinking about this lately.
Really?
I'm living my dream. That's pretty cool. Not many people get to say that they're actually living their dream career.
Totally.
So I feel really lucky in that.
Was this always your dream career? Because this was absolutely a career I never wanted to have because my mom does this.
Right. And that makes sense. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I didn't want what my mom does, which is a TV producer. So I went into TV for like a brief moment for grad school to get money for grad school and said, yeah, my mom was right. I don't want to do this. Like, I am not doing this. I am definitely going into therapy. But I think I told you during our interview or when you first met me that like in high school, I used to do basically private practice on the side, like very unethically. Obviously, I had no idea what I was doing, but I would just go out to lunch with people and like give them advice as if I knew what I was doing as like a 15-year-old.
Sure.
But I just wanted to talk to people and help them out.
Yeah.
And so now I'm doing it in like an ethical, professional way. But I always kind of knew I wanted to do this.
Nice.
In some capacity.
Did you, in high school, did you have like a peer counseling group or anything?
Yeah. That was my senior year. I got to choose like an elective. Yeah. And it was peer counseling. And we had to basically do like our final project, which was like, who am I? Oh my gosh. Full circle. Who am I?
Yep.
And it was a project that just, we slaved over all year. We had to do little peer mediation groups and just like, do what you do basically in grad school, but as a high schooler.
Wow.
When you don't know anything.
But you did.
But I did it. Yeah. Just like I'm doing this podcast now. And I really prep myself by saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. That's been my go-to phrase lately.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. Well, that's something I used to say all the time to clients.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better.
Feeling like they need the courage to do something.
Right.
I say that's not how courage works. Courage comes from doing the thing you're afraid of.
Courage is fear walking, right?
Oh.
Is that your thing?
Oh, I like that.
See, I listen. I do.
Look at that. And you did the
and
visual,
I did the walking. Yes,
right?
the walking with the fingers.
Y'all can't see that, but she is walking with her fingers.
Walking. I do use my hands a lot, so you might hear that. But I feel the fear and do it anyway. I'm glad to hear you like that as a phrase because sometimes I'm like, is it a little too tough love? But no, I think it actually is important because it's telling yourself or telling a client like fear is not a bad thing. You can have fear and you can still do it.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Prove to yourself that you can do it.
Right.
With fear.
I've had a client say to me for years, I need help being fearless. I need help being fearless.
Mm-hmm.
Not a chance. I don't want to take that away from you.
Right. Who would you be without fear?
Right. You feel the fear and you do the thing and that builds confidence, that builds courage. That's where
self-efficacy.
Yeah, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
All those things. So you are literally walking your talk.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Even though you're sitting. You're sitting your talk.
I'm sitting my talk right now. Thank you.
Nice.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
Well, welcome here. And all y'all listeners out there, please give Kenzie a warm welcome.
Don't hate me, please. And if you do, keep it to yourself. Inside thought. Yeah.
No. Actually, whether you hate her or love her or are completely indifferent, please feel free to jump on social media.
Oh, yes.
Rate us,
Good
review
segue.
us wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on all the social medias. TikTok, which you're not on.
I am not on TikTok. What kind of millennial am I?
I don't know.
I'm
more of a millennial than you now.
Yeah, you really are. We've talked about this. I'm an 80-year-old woman trapped inside a 30-year-old body.
There you go. Yeah.
So it has its pros and cons.
Absolutely. But do find us anywhere you find social media things. We are on there amongst the things. And if you have any questions for us or about sessions, please email us at info@yourmentalbreakdown.com, and we will devote some time in each episode to answering some of your questions. We'd love to do that.
Some interaction with the audience. That would be cool.
Right?
Yeah, I'm into that.
Yeah. Speaking of interaction.
Yeah.
Shall we interact with the client and check in with Sarah? It's been a while.
It has been a while, but I think this is a good one. And maybe I don't know if I should wait to say this, but I think this is a good session to start with.
Absolutely. I agree, because she kind of does go into some of the history.
Yeah.
And you guys, there's no spoiler because you're probably coming back to us, or if it's the first time, Sarah grew up in a cult.
Yep.
And you will hear a little bit of that and a little bit about her and what's going on. And then we will come back at the end of the session and break it down for you.
Woohoo.
We'll see you in a bit.
All righty.
I have the podcast you sent me about the cult. I haven't heard yet, but that's in my queue.
That I just stumbled across it. So it's nobody's personal opinions. It's just a man and a woman, and they just talk almost as if, well, they're basically just stating facts. So it's anything that is on the record, recorded, crimes, arrests, anything that is public knowledge. So there's no like personal interpretation. My sister and I were just like, what? It was amazing. Like, it was exactly chronologically, factually correct. It was very good. So there's two parts. Part two actually made me a bit emotional in certain parts. Part two is around the time that I was born. So everything that I personally remember. So first it was the family, then it was the family of love, then it was the family international. Yeah. With each name change came different horrors. Around the time it was the family was when a lot of the sexual, like child abuse was happening. When it changed to the family of love, ironically, was really when a lot of the corporal punishments, the beatings, the gaggings, the silence restrictions, the, starving tactics were happening. So part two of that made me very emotional. And it does, sort of, I briefly touched on how many of ex-members have committed suicide. So every time it says something, and it's so weird to hear just a totally foreign voice just telling me my life, basically in little bite-sized snippets. I randomly came across this show called Cults because it's like similar podcasts to what you listen to. And so I start scrolling through and I just see cults. And I'm like, ooh, I wonder if they have an episode on the children of God. And sure enough, yeah.
So the thing that I think about that is when we go through trauma, we often don't recognize it in the moment because of the protections that we put up and the way we need to survive and what we need to do to get through it. And when we recall it or talk about it, it's often very clinical and factual for some. Or it's incredibly emotional and almost re-traumatizing. And it seems to be a lot on either end of the extremes, not a lot of middle way of talking about it.
The things that made me actually feel emotional while listening, even though the way they talk is very clinical, probably even worse than me. Sometimes I find myself thinking, holy God, maybe I was lucky that I grew up in this cult. There's cults that have literally ritualistic murders and shit. I'm not saying ours didn't have its moments, but there are some even really fucked up cults.
It's interesting too, because that's, as we've talked about the power dynamic in your life, it's just what you've been conditioned by and what you know around you and what you've been exposed to. And
yeah,
a lot of what you were exposed to, at least in most of your childhood, was influenced by Berg and the cult.
And it's interesting. All this time I've been saying, our cult did such and such. But the more I listen to this, the more I realize this is a very baseline personality disorder of a leader. That's their main thing, is influence. Is it you have to be the way they want you to be, whether you're in the cult or you're a friend of the cult or you're in one of, our communes. There's no arguing with it, or you're severely punished and you're cast out and you're shamed.
And it's often about power and control. And they find some way to have power and control over others. And there's so many small cults that we don't even realize are cults because they're not on our radar. And they don't have to be doing such abusive things, but they will do manipulative things. And I say this in a very loving way to explain it. A lot of how you construct your world is based on a similar level of power and control. Not to have it over others, but to give yourself peace and containment and stability. And I think with boyfriend, from what I know of the relationship, wow, there's no struggle for power or control there. And what a relief.
No, it really is. I agree that I have a control thing over myself. It's what kept me safe, what kept me alive till now. I mean, I'm a huge control freak, if we're being honest. I don't even like when other people give me work. I always change something because it's not the way that I had envisioned it to be.
Right. And that's why a lot of people kind of go at work, or some people, we don't know how to do this now that Sarah took it because she made it her own. And like, we don't know. And it's partly a function of that and unconscious power and control. Somewhat conscious, but unconscious in that this is the way you construct it. In part so you feel safe, in part so that no one has power or control over you.
Yeah.
And it's, it feels good.
So one thing that I've been learning from this is when cult leaders react harshly to people who break their rules, it's because they're struggling with their own morality, like their own rules that they've made up or decided, like sex with minors or marrying minors. They are struggling to make it make sense in their own mind. So when somebody else, almost like, how you always say, I'm going to mirror that back to you, like I'm going to shine that back at you. I guess it's, in a sense, what they're feeling is they're seeing the results of their decisions and their rules and their preachings. So when somebody doesn't want to follow or breaks those rules, they react super harshly. I suppose I was trying to quantify certain things in my life that happened when I did tell my mom I wanted to leave. And I told you I got locked up in the cabin and prayed over. So do you think that my mother and stepdad, well, let's just stick with my mother. Do you think she had those same feelings from what I just explained about, when the cult leaders make rules and things? Do you think it was because I was making her look at herself and what she was doing?
I mean, look, there's this guy, I don't know if you've heard of him. His name was Galileo. He was one of the first people to say, oh yeah, the sun doesn't revolve around the earth. And, he was put on house arrest. I think at the core of these things, you're right, that when somebody has a certain narrative that they're trying to, your word force, my word sell, will just say, keep consistent for themselves and the people around them so that they feel better. If there's a threat to that, a lot of people don't want that. Yeah, they lash out. I think the evolved way to do it is go, oh, well, what do you think? Tell me about that. Let me hear your side. That idea of needing other people to believe what you believe in order for it to be true, we can't all agree. So is that human nature? Is that human nurture? I don't know, Sarah. I really don't. So I can't tell you. But when your mom heard you wanted to leave, it probably scared her. And I think that she's traumatized from the cult too, whether she realizes it or not.
That's true. I always thought okay, she's so mad because it's going to make her look bad. When I left, not a lot of people were leaving, and especially not young people. And my mom was one of the higher ups in the cult at the time.
Sure.
And I always felt like, oh, she's overreacting because she's going to feel embarrassed or she's going to feel ashamed. It's just been rolling around in my mind the last 2 days when I heard them talk about that. Because there is so many times where Berg would, once he'd established himself as the prophet of God, he made us call him Moses David.
Right.
So he essentially went and got his new 10 commandments directly from God. At that point, I still struggled to even allow myself to try and understand where their minds were at that point. There's the pain and there's the heartbreak and there's the hurt and there's the bad memories and the things that will get me, the triggers. I don't understand fully how somebody can get to that point.
I want to narrow in on something, and I'll apologize in advance if I'm wrong. I don't understand how somebody, we're not talking about somebody. We're not talking about somebody. We're talking about your mom. We're talking about your dad, maybe even your stepdad.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, my stepdad.
About. Yeah.
He was the worst.
So take that confusion that we're talking about, focus it on not how could somebody do it? Doug, tell me how clinically, how can one do this? How can one think that, we're talking about 3 specific individuals, maybe more, your family.
Okay.
And think about it with those people in mind and say what you're really thinking or feeling based on those people, not academically. Give me data. Say it again with them in mind.
I just think, how could you ever be so stupid on one hand and just so blind and I truly believe, not my mom. My mom never hurt a fly. For this particular piece, I'm talking about actual abuse, sexual, physical, where somebody said it is okay for you to give you should give your 12-year-old daughter to this 40-year-old man because now she can have babies. Okay, this is what I'm trying to understand.
Well, your mom agreed.
Yeah, I've talked to her about it.
Did
Maybe
she not know what was happening?
Yeah, I mean, she refuses to admit that. So, sister one, my eldest sister, was in that era where they actually had schedules where they had to go look at the schedule to see who they were supposed to have sex with that night. She remembers it very vaguely. She probably has the most unaddressed trauma of our family. And my mom will just either cry or say, no, it never happened. Right. She, for sure, in full denial, my mother, for sure. However, I don't know 100% if she knew that sister one was being given to adult men to sleep with, because she was gone a lot as well. I've told you this, right? She traveled all the time. She's guilty in the sense that she read the Mo letters that were condoning this, that were making this part of what he called God's law of love. But in her mind, she doesn't believe it actually happened.
I would say your mom, sister, there's a level of selective memory where it's not just remembering what you want to remember. It's that, especially when there's trauma, we disassociate. And you've said it too. There are some things where, you'll get hit by something, go, oh yeah, it's a protective mechanism. We've talked about it, that system of safety that your brain built for you to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Your mom is not that, as you would say, stupid. She's got a pretty advanced coping system so that she could be a part of something and feel a part of a community and not recognize certain things that were happening and not have to face them. That's why some people, when you were asking me in the beginning of this session, have such a strong reaction to dissidents, to people that don't agree, to people that will challenge.
Yeah. It's like she physically can't now even face any of that. She made a decision, like you said, to be part of a group, to feel part of whatever it was in her that needed to be part of, God's chosen whatever. When you've bought all of this shit, hook, line, and sinker, and you spent, 30 years of your life essentially blinding yourself. I don't know what you do or what she did. I don't know, but she did it, whatever it was. To go back and really take, say, oh, yes, this did happen. And that's my fault. I should have protected you. I don't know that there's ever going to be a day she could do that. Yeah. She'll cry all the time. If anything comes up, she'll start crying. But that's it. And then, of course, everybody's like, oh, sorry, Mom, don't worry. We're fine. We're all good.
Well, and you aren't.
No.
And this is why ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you don't realize it. You don't have to face it. You don't have to be destroyed by it. Well, you're looking at it. You're not destroyed by it. In you, there is something you haven't tapped into and haven't allowed yourself to really feel and express. And that's anger. No, not there, Doug. Sorry. No, we don't get angry in my household. I don't do that. I don't think you or your system, consciously or unconsciously, knows where to put that anger, who to be angry at.
Yeah.
Everything you've said about Mom explains a lot. It doesn't excuse it. She wasn't protecting, but okay, we're not going to get angry at her. You, I think, don't realize how angry you are.
I think that's also why I like to seek counsel and why I came to you, to any therapist in any time of my life, was because I didn't know the right way to feel the feelings. I still don't all the time. But I mean, if we go deep there, I don't know how to feel those feelings, just like you're saying.
Right. You don't. And I'll be there with you. We'll do that together. I don't know how to feel those feelings. Well, you feel them anyway. I don't know how to express them. I don't know what to do with them. That's true. And that's where we'll do it together.
Okay.
And maybe you screaming into a pillow doesn't work on your own. You screaming into a pillow with me. Sure. We need to allow you to be angry in what we've called, you and I before have said, it's a controlled burn, not a wildfire.
Yep.
You are not going to burn your house down. You're not going to destroy your life, your work, your kids, your relationship.
Yeah.
It's you giving yourself the chance to actually feel angry. And we'll see how we express it. I don't know how we're going to express it. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be you going to a punching bag. That works for some. I don't. Okay. What just happened?
That might not be a bad idea.
Tell me about that.
I think somehow that would work better for me, at least to start, like something more physical. I like the idea of punching something.
Yeah, great. Then I love this. I think it's going to be the opposite effect for you in terms of you're just going to start hitting a punching bag, and you will maybe start to see a face on the bag in your mind, whatever it is. And it might not be a face. It might be an entity. It might be a feeling. I don't know what it is. But this is because we don't know what to be angry at.
Yep.
And you are so controlled that it doesn't get to come out. I think that's an experience that you can give yourself and see what happens. It might be nothing. It might be like, Doug, my knuckles are bruised. That was dumb. You know, yeah, that felt great. I had a good
get
sweat.
Me into shape as well, Sophie.
Right. What I'd like to take a pause from, and this is what I'd like. You don't have to do what I like. These are your sessions, not mine. If you heard, I think Bonnie was saying it. Do you think, Sarah, do you think Sarah would ever say to you, no, I disagree, or no, I wouldn't like to do that? Or do you think she would challenge you?
Like, even when you call bullshit on me and stuff, I remember her saying, do you think she's saying, oh yeah, no, that was total bullshit because she thinks that's what she's supposed to say? No, that's not. Because I realized once you said it, oh, now I see what he's saying. And by the time you're done, I'm just like, phew. I mean, this is the reason I'm here, right? Because you're giving me something I don't see.
And here's where I'm giving you something you don't see. And we are going to let you take the lead unconsciously, because neither one of us knows where this is really going to come out and where it's going to go. I will guide you because I've done this before. I've got you, which is the feeling place. It's a pause from getting more data. It's a pause from understanding more. You seek to understand because you say that you feel confused. And confusion's sister is frustration. Frustration's cousin is anger.
I do want to learn how to feel those feelings because I think that's going to, sort of get me to my next step of growth. I've never been comfortable with anger in the sense, I experienced a lot of it directed to me as a child. If I hate something, or even if I dislike a person, I'll never tell them. I won't be mean to them. I won't roll my eyes. I won't even talk about them bad behind their back. Like, that's how I deal with annoying or, upsetting or irking, for want of a better word, people, things, situations. I just remove myself.
And you said it, that idea of, I want to feel these feelings. They're there. You've had them. You've found a way to feel them in a very small compartment and shove them in that Bruce Almighty filing cabinet and close it. We're going to find middle here.
Yeah.
I think it would be too easy to keep it intellectual and to understand and to get more data and to do it that way. I don't want to open the filing cabinet, pull out a file, read it, and go, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of that.
Yes.
I think what we need is building that emotional vocabulary, so to speak.
Yes.
And actually feeling the feelings. There's more underneath the anger. We can get there too. But it's giving yourself the experience of feeling it.
I've lived my life is saying, okay, I don't understand how you could do all these fucked up things. I don't understand how you could allow your children to be, to my mom, how you could allow this. So I need to change that to just be, I don't fucking like it. I don't know. I need something there more than a question mark, because you're right. Yeah. There's a lot of anger.
I'll tell you this because it's relevant now, and I want to see what you think of this. I was working at a residential place for teenagers with severe emotional disturbances. And there was one kid, we'll just call him Joey.
Okay.
Joey was a very likable guy, had a girlfriend he talked to on the phone sometimes. And he got off the phone and he slammed the payphone receiver into the phone, might have broken it, I don't remember, and started, tearing shit up in his room. He started walking through, his room and the area that was the common area, just destroying stuff. So I know he just got off the phone. He and I have talked. I knew him a little bit, not much. One of my coworkers started with me following him around. And when the coworkers said, okay, he's now going over the edge. We don't care if he destroys property, but he threw something at one of the other staff. So now he's a danger. And the coworker gave me the signal to put him in a restraint. And I refused. Our supervisor came by. What's going on? How come he's not being restrained? And I said, hey, if I can get him to calm down for a minute, can I just take him out and let him throw some baseballs with me? Like, can we please try this? And I went up to him and said, hey, Joey, can you just go in your room and chill for a minute? And I'll come back. He went to the room, sat in his bed. The other staff member was just waiting in the doorway. We went outside. Like, all the staff are watching because he's going to go off and he's going to need to get restrained. And I let him throw a couple baseballs to me. Mm-hmm. 2 throws. And then he walked towards me, went down on his knees and started crying. Oh. And he was telling me that she broke up with him. That's why he was so mad. What do you think about that story?
I like that you wanted to allow him his moment of feelings rather than just instant punishment and restraint, like what I've done to myself my whole life. I'm thinking of him as if it was me while you're telling the story, and thinking if I had allowed myself to just slam the phone, but also had, a support system where I think he was lucky, that kid, because he was exhibiting anger, but really he was heartbroken. So once he felt that anger, he got past it and realized what the real feeling was. I haven't even gotten to anger yet, Doug. I was honestly imagining as if it was me in that moment, what I could have done to allow myself to feel the feelings, but I didn't. And instead, I put myself in the restraint.
I love that you were relating it to you because that's why I told it to you. And I think what you also said in that is very, very true. You didn't have the support system around you. You couldn't slam the phone because the people coming weren't just going to restrain you. They were going to abuse you.
Yep. I couldn't feel the feelings because I had to get up and get a job and get to working on life. So there was no moment where I was allowed to feel feelings, even in the cult.
What we're walking through right now, you and I, is recognizing, oh, right, I know there's heartbreak underneath it. You said it. You've said it before.
Yep.
I know there's anger. I don't even know how to feel or express that, but that's there. Okay, we'll walk through some of that. We'll start letting that in and it will be okay. So for the next week, if you can, just let this percolate. Let this sink in and see what comes up.
I will.
I'll check in with you next week. It's not like, all right, next week, bring your gloves. For right now, just let that sink in. Because I think what we opened up is, there is anger. I would like to let this out. I don't really know how to do. Just try it. Just let that be. Just let that be. Okay. And we'll see where it is in a week.
Yeah, okay. So, like I was saying, I do think this is actually a really good one to start with.
I just want to give them a welcome back.
Oh, yes, please. Oh, my God. I'm so sorry. Look at me. I told you I'm overzealous.
Overcaffeinated. That's right. Okay. Welcome back.
Hello. And we can go. All right. Like I was saying, I really do think this session speaks to me on a therapist level, a client level. I think we're like, we could start here, really, if you don't know anything about Sarah. But like you said, she grew up in a cult. I think we get a taste of that. And it's very much like therapy 101. And I don't mean that as like a slight to Sarah, right? But it's, wow, we're getting into we over intellectualize and we actually have to feel our feelings.
Right.
And, you know, in a way that's like, yep, that's therapy. Therapy 101. Let's feel our feelings.
Interesting, too, that just for context, this is, I have it marked down as Sarah's 33rd episode.
It is, yeah.
Right? Or 33rd session.
Is it her 33rd session?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that means it's been just over half a year of therapy.
And you can tell, right? I feel like her progress, I mean, not that there's, you know, progress is not linear, it's different for everyone, but I feel like she has seen progress for sure.
Right.
And we hit that a little bit.
Yep.
And we're going a bit further into like, how are we actually going to feel your feelings, Sarah? Like, let's individualize this, right? Like, what does that even look like? Yep. And my first question for you really was like, how do you know when someone is over intellectualizing versus feeling their feelings? Like, what does that even mean to over intellectualize as a coping mechanism?
It's a little different for everybody. So if I say this, it's not necessarily a blanket statement for everybody out there. This is intellectualizing over being emotionally expressive. What we know about Sarah is she likes collecting data. She likes thinking about things. She likes solving things. And she's not very adept at naming her feelings and talking about them. So when I hear her trying to understand somebody, you know, and she said this in the past, in past sessions, which you'll remember. Yeah. She'll say, I don't understand. How can somebody do this? How can they do that? What I'm hearing is somebody trying to intellectually understand and go down that road rather than express how she feels about somebody doing this and what's going on for her. So that's an indicator for me.
Yeah. Like not making it about herself and her feelings and instead just trying to like do all the external stuff, which we'll get into more probably is like the control element too, right? Like, can I control other people instead of having to like look inward?
Right. And what you just said, she was saying things in a very vague, broad, general way because she's trying to make those blanket statements and understand why someone would do this, why someone would do that.
Right.
And during that session, I kind of went, well, hang on a second. We're not talking about someone. We're talking about your mom.
Yes.
So I'm trying to make it personal for her. And a lot of what happens for people that have gone through trauma is they depersonalize.
Yes.
They need to not make it about them because it's overwhelming if you do. That's why later I said, you did this for good reason. You intellectualized, you depersonalized for good reason, to protect yourself.
Quote unquote trauma response that she loves to say as she's trying to give you the correct answer to something, right? Like, that's my trauma response, right?
Right. Which, you know, again, 8 months into therapy, that's a great place for her to be.
Yeah,
because in the beginning of me saying you're a trauma survivor, she hated that.
Yes. I get that a lot actually from clients who don't want to identify with that label of like a trauma survivor. They want to be, or maybe survivor actually sounds better, I think, for some people than maybe owning like the victim label. Like some people just don't want to be seen or defined by their trauma, right? And I think it's a really noble thing, I think, for her. And I think you've mentioned that with her before. Like it's that justice warrior kind of like noble thing to not want to smack that label on yourself and just say, I'm defined by my trauma. Like, this is my life. This is who I am.
Right.
And not but, and right.
Well done. Well done.
It affected her, obviously, in so many ways.
And she's owning that now. And that's why she says to me, like, as a trauma survivor, she can say that.
Yeah.
Whereas when we first talked about it, she had a similar response that you just kind of mentioned. No, I'm not a victim. No, I don't want that. Stop that. Don't say that. And now she's saying trauma survivor like a badge, like it's just shorthand and explains something.
I think this is a good segue, actually, because you said you clarified for her in a way to get her more into her feelings. Like, this is not just someone that we're talking about. This is your mom.
Right.
Mom, and briefly a little bit like stepdad. Like, these were your caregivers, right, who were doing this.
Right.
I do find this interesting as, you know, a baby therapist, an associate therapist, you know, when a client will ask us direct questions about what we think. So she asked, like, well, why do you think my mom did this, right? There's a question kind of in that vein, like, well, what do you think was going on there? And it was like, she was probing you more in like a clinical sense, right? Kind of in the vein of understanding, like, why did they do this, right?
Right.
And there's, there's no clear answer. Obviously, I think to us, we're like, yeah, there's no rights or wrongs. There's no answers here. She did it for her reasons. You know, they're reasons. They're not excuses.
Right.
But how do you, as a therapist, get into that when a client is directly asking you what you think? How do you tackle that? Do you want to just answer it honestly right out the gate? Or do you want to go around the back door, right? And be like, well, why are you asking me this? Why do you care about my opinion? Right? Because I think some therapists would do that.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think all of those things are valid. There isn't a, no, you never want to do this. You only want to do this. I don't believe in that at all.
Yes.
Right?
I like that about you.
Right.
Yeah.
So even like you just said, oh, well, why are you asking that?
Mm-hmm.
There's a meta, which is why is it important to you what I think about you? Yeah. And that's something that I just kind of log and go, okay, she's looking for my approval. It's something that I don't know if it was Meredith on the podcast or Bonnie on the podcast who said,
I think it was Bonnie.
It was Bonnie. Right? She was saying she's looking for like your approval as like the white male power figure. And she just wants that. And like, oh, okay.
That transference of just like, I want his approval. I'll just say I'll do whatever he wants, right? I'll get the punching bag if he wants me to get a punching bag.
Right. Yep. Let me be the good girl and let me know. And, you know, we even referenced that in this session.
You're right. Yep. Right? I think we'll get to that more.
Yep. Yeah. So when someone asks, what do I think of that? A lot of my charge as a therapist is to join them in their journey of discovery of themselves.
Yeah.
So I hear them say, what do you think of that? As this is an opportunity for us to think out loud in the room.
To process in real time together.
Yep. I don't take the position of I am the expert. So here's what I think. And this is, you know, the word of God.
Yeah. Really which would be re-traumatizing almost,
in
right?
This case with Sarah, absolutely would.
Yeah.
Although it would at the same time be something familiar and maybe even comfortable that I know what that means. I know how to respond to that.
Right. But would you want to do it if it's familiar and comfortable? Because as we know, like the growth happens, you know, outside the comfort zone. So maybe she doesn't need that right now.
Right. Yeah. And maybe I would do that and then call attention to it. So, so you're asking what I think. That's sort of like how you just get somebody's opinion here and you follow it blindly. How's that any different than a cult? And it's, I had an interesting line later.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that. We'll hit that when I was talking about, I don't even know if I mentioned the cult of personality.
Don't think so. Not in this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about just how charismatic a cult leader can be.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there is something of the cult of personality. It's not just a song by Living Colour from 1988.
Wow.
Which you
well,
won't
I'm
remember.
showing my age because I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, it's awesome. If it weren't for Living Colour, there wouldn't be Rage Against the Machine, which
really?
I'm hoping you know who
I
they are.
do know Rage Against the Machine.
Living Colour was a tremendous band back in the mid-late 80s. And they had a song called The Cult of Personality. It was a great song. I mean, if we had the rights to it, we would play it.
I know, right? I'll have to listen to it.
It rocks.
Okay.
But it's that idea of following blindly somebody who's just charismatic and taking on their sense of right and wrong, their values, their morals, so that you don't have to think for yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, yes.
And that's something that I'm very aware of with Sarah, that I want her to create and craft her own narrative.
Yes. And your answer, I mean, in case people forgot, was, I don't know, right? You're like, I don't know, Sarah. There's no right and wrong, right? And I think, you know, I was actually just talking to a client about this yesterday. I think it comes up a lot with multiple clients, whether they have trauma or not, right? Like developing your own set of values is kind of the through line for almost everyone's therapy, because if we don't have that internal compass, we're going to feel lost and we're going to cling to other people's values and narratives.
Right. But then we'll lose our sense of self.
Right.
And that's exactly, you know, when I said to you, Kenzie, and not her, that this is an opportunity to think out loud with the client. That's part of me saying, I don't know. Let's think about this. I think I even said, I don't know. Well, is that human nature? Is that this? I don't know. Like, what do you think? It's just being able to verbalize what goes on internally in the room with the client, so that the room becomes sort of like your internal mind, your internal process. And here we are inside of you thinking out loud, making sense of things.
Yeah, I really like that.
Similar to what Sarah would say, like, I've compartmentalized and I carry all this baggage around. Like, okay, well, let's put it down, pop it open,
unpack,
and see exactly.
Literally unpack and figuratively unpack.
Both of them.
It's a perfect metaphor. I'm not going to lie. We're literally unpacking, or we're doing the Bruce Almighty file cabinet. Yeah, totally. All of those things make sense. And I've found myself using them with clients as well, because it just makes so much sense. I think everyone can understand that.
Totally.
Like, let's just take it out for a little bit where we're safe in this room, like where this containment is happening.
Right.
And we'll just put it away, because compartmentalizing is not inherently bad or wrong, right? Or anything. It's actually useful a lot of the times. We can't just be breaking down everywhere, right? And we need to make sure we're leaving space for feeling the feelings, which I guess, to circle back to that question, like, what does it actually mean to feel your feelings? Is it the processing in real time in the room where you're kind of doing that maybe critical thinking or Socratic questioning, or is it more of an experiential get into your body, right? Like, what are you feeling right now? Like, what does feel your feelings actually mean to you?
To me?
To you.
Well, to me is both relevant and irrelevant.
Okay.
Because what it means to me personally is different than what it means as a therapist, because as a therapist, I'm looking at what does it mean to this client.
Okay,
right?
That's fair. Yeah.
So I kind of park what it means to me personally, and I don't even bring that in the room.
Okay.
That's kind of why I like being a therapist. I like doing this stuff. It's not about me. I share a lot about me in several of these sessions, as you know.
Of course. Yeah. Relatively speaking, you err on the side of, I can self-disclose, or I can share a story or something that will relate.
Towards the end of this session, I did share a story, and it's something that she really took to. And if you stick around and listen to next week's session, you will hear how that came back for her.
Yeah, she really liked it. Yeah.
And that comes from me disclosing something and sharing something as it serves her. That idea of, okay, well, what does this mean to you? And let's figure this out together. You haven't really expressed feelings. You haven't really felt your feelings. Let's walk through that together. I've learned her enough in 8 months that I know how she functions, and I can challenge her on some things. I can walk with her on some things. And it really is just thinking out loud. So when she says, well, what do you think? Oh, great. This is an invitation to help bring her thought process out, which will lead us to her emotional process and expressions.
And as we know, emotions and thoughts are all connected.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Okay. So here is a question I had, and maybe this is me getting a little too overthinking. Like, I think it's fair to say a lot of us are overthinkers as therapists. It's kind of our job to overthink, but there will be times when I think I really attach to a certain word, like language. It seems really important, right? And there's one here where you say, in you, there is something you haven't allowed yourself to express, and that's anger, right? Like, you explicitly, like, just say directly, you are not expressing your anger, right? Like, you identify the emotion for her almost, right? And this is not so much a critique, but more of a question, like, is it okay sometimes to directly just be like, hey, I'm sensing it's anger that you're not feeling, instead of having them get to the answer, which is that, oh, I'm not feeling anger, right? Like, it's anger. Right. Instead, you kind of gave her that answer. And I'm always thinking, oh my gosh, should I be letting them get there, or should I just tell them, like, hey, I'm going to reflect this back to you. I'm hearing anger. Right.
Yeah. So what's the question?
What is the question? The question is it okay to just hand that answer to a client, I guess, right? Like, hey, I'm sensing anger. Because what if it wasn't anger? What if it's actually sadness, disappointment, betrayal, right? Like, all these other feelings.
What do you think would happen if it was sadness and not anger?
I think at this point, she would probably challenge you or say, like, oh, maybe it's anger. I think it's also sadness, right? Or maybe it would take some time for her to, let out the anger first. And then, like you say in the session, right? Like, eventually those kind of, the tip of the iceberg is anger, and then everything underneath it, right? The secondary stuff. What's actually underneath it? Yeah, probably is sadness, betrayal, disappointment, all those things. So maybe she would get there, and you kind of sense that it's an easier almost route to feel anger first and then get to the deeper things.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Did I answer my own question?
You did. I love that. Brilliantly.
Love that too.
You are brilliant.
Oh, thank you so much. No, this is the overthinking in action, because as I was asking you the question, I'm like coming to the answer on my own.
Right. Which is brilliant. I mean, this is how we learn.
Okay. There is a part where she says, I have a fear. Sarah has a fear of not knowing how to feel the feelings properly. And this is, I guess, we're still talking about feeling the feelings here, but I just kind of flag that as, wow, isn't it interesting that people think there's a right and a wrong way to feel feelings? Like the fear of doing it wrong. And I get this a lot with clients, the kind of fear of doing it wrong and also the fear of just opening the floodgates. And I know we were talking about compartmentalizing and all of that. And it comes up with Drew too, right? Like just compartmentalizing and how important it is. Yeah. So that fear of doing it wrong, opening the floodgates, how do you kind of, I don't know if it's reassuring clients that like it's going to be okay, or if it's more, how do you navigate? Yeah, we are going to open the floodgates or open the can of worms, but we're going to do it in a safe and effective way that works for you.
That's exactly how you do it. You just see, you don't even need me here. You don't.
Okay, so you're going to leave. It's going to be the Kenzie podcast, the think piece of Kenzie.
Absolutely. But that's totally right. And I say that all the time to clients. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to do that. I use we language a lot.
Yeah.
You know, you said you like words. I use we language.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're going to do that. Mm-hmm. We'll do that. Mm-hmm. So they know they're not alone.
Yeah.
Right. To me, that's part of providing the safe space. And when we talked about the Bruce Almighty drawer, opening the baggage and the luggage and mentalizing what we've compartmentalized,
right.
That's something we're going to do together and we're going to make sense of. I'm not going to say, I'm going to tell you how to understand that.
Right.
I say, we're going to make sense of this.
That is my favorite thing about therapy, I think, is how individualized it really is. Yeah, I found myself telling a client that yesterday too. She was just like, how do you do it? Like, how do you hold everyone's stuff? Like, everyone does things differently. Everyone's process different. Like, how do you do that? And I'm just like, I don't know, but I love it. Like, that's the whole point. I love knowing you as an individual and what works for you and how different it is that's the beauty of it. I think that's so cool.
What I was saying about, I join with my clients in their process. Mm-hmm. Each client has a slightly different process.
Yeah. And they're not alone. And maybe that is the number one, arguably the number one thing why therapy works is the relational aspect, the alliance, you know, as we know, the working relationship, and that feeling of not doing it alone.
Well, that's one of my favorite little stories, parables. I don't know what it is, but this guy's walking along, falls into a ditch, and screams for help. Right? You remember this one?
I think I do, but I would love for you to say it again.
Well, I'm going to butcher it. I'm going to butcher it a little bit. So somebody's in a ditch, and somebody walks by and sees him in there. I'll cut to the end. I'm not going to do the whole long version of it.
Okay, fair.
And he jumps into the ditch. He goes, what are you doing? Now we're both in the ditch. Mm-hmm. And he says, but I've been here before and I know the way out.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That one hits really hard.
To me, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
We're jumping into the ditch with them, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because we know a way out.
Right.
And we're going to help them find the best way out for them. And maybe at the end of the day, I might need to go to my therapist and talk about this and help get me out of whatever ditch I might have fallen into.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's developing those tools, right? It's kind of making me think of this concept of, I think it's just a general question here about therapy and, in general. But when people say you can only help someone or take someone as far as you've gone.
I want somebody that understands my experience.
Yep.
And some things you're only going to be able to really know if you've experienced them.
Like, I don't care if you have the education and the whatever, the acronyms next to your name. It's if you've never been in a car crash, you can still empathize with somebody who's been in a car crash and has trauma from it. Sure.
Yeah. And there are some things that are universal. I understand what it's like to have loss, right? Mm-hmm. But do you need somebody that has had the kind of loss that I have had? Mm-hmm.
No, because even if you did have the same exact type of loss, and I put that in quotes, the same exact type of loss, as if that's possible, you still are going to grieve and process differently than that person. So everyone is affected differently by even the same quote unquote trauma.
Sure.
Right.
Totally.
Okay. Let's get back to Sarah, shall we?
Oh, right. The session we just had.
Right. Okay. So now I'm at the point where you're going off on this story, right? Uh-huh. And the therapist in me is obviously like, Doug, how do you just like go off on not a tangent, but how do you just feel comfortable enough to just, I'm going to tell you a story right now, right? Like, okay, it's story time. Because I think, part of that overthinking thing for me is I don't want to waste their time. What if the story doesn't land? What if it's not going to resonate with them? And then I just wasted 5-10 minutes, right, of this precious 50-minute session. How have you gotten to a point in your career where you're like, yeah, this story I think might hit for them? Or if it doesn't, it's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like either way.
I think mostly because I just want to tell the story. I don't care what they think.
At least you're honest. It's self-serving.
Right,
okay.
right. Not at all. It's something that at times for me as a therapist, I can see is not landing. So I will kind of abandon or wrap up.
Okay.
That has happened.
Yeah.
Not every story I tell is relevant to everything that a client is going through in the moment. I have had one client, I remember I was telling a story and afterwards he kind of went, oh, why did you do that? I was getting emotional about my own experience and you just told me something else.
Wow. Okay. Seriously. I just had a gut reaction to that where I went, oh my God, that's like worst case scenario for me.
Right. Okay. Well, walk with me here on the worst case scenario.
Yes,
so
please.
He says that. And in the moment, I kind of went, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I tried to get back to his emotional experience and what he was going through. And we did. And I abandoned the story that I was telling him. Yeah. And I kind of logged, okay, he needs to stick with his own experience. I wanted to highlight something objectively so he could come out of his story. And I missed it. He needed to stay in his.
Okay.
The following week, I said to him, hey, you know what? I owe you a real apology.
Nice.
What?
Okay.
See, you just said nice.
Yeah.
So the worst scenario became something very nice.
Yeah, exactly. It became an actual moment for connection where I don't think that was quote unquote a rupture and repair moment. It wasn't a rupture, but it was a misstep maybe. And it was a chance to almost provide that, corrective emotional experience that we talk about, which is like being able to say sorry and just have a healthy conflict almost like, wow, I'm sorry that did not land for you. Like, how can I better, support you?
Yeah. And it's owning that. Like, I'm not the guru in the mountain telling everybody how it is.
Yeah.
And just going, hey, I owe you a real apology. I missed something. I took us out of that moment and I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And having that kind of apology and having somebody really take responsibility and be accountable for that is something a lot of clients, a lot of people haven't been able to experience.
It's
so
huge.
To have that, it was huge.
Yeah.
Am I glad that it happened?
Right.
Yes and no.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
Because it gave us that opportunity.
Yeah.
That's why I say often, you never really make a mistake in therapy if you can
own it,
revisit it, learn from it, use it.
Don't shy away from it, because then it becomes more of a thing if you don't acknowledge it. Which,
let's get meta and bring it back. That becomes how we avoid, how we protect, right?
That experiential avoidance.
Right? Which is exactly what was happening with Sarah and why I kept coming back and going, hey, let's make this personal. Hey, we're talking about your mom. We're talking about this.
Bring it back.
And then for her, in this session, the reason I told the story was I could see that part of what we were kind of joking about was this anger in her that she doesn't want to let out, knowing there are emotional levels underneath that we're not ready to get to just yet.
Right.
That are there. So first level for her is just having it be okay to express anger, because that hasn't been okay.
Anger.
Right.
Yeah.
When we mentioned the punching bags, like, oh, no. Right.
Yeah.
And I've been telling her about screaming into a pillow for a while now.
Right. Well, I think it was screaming into the pillow that maybe wasn't landing, but then the punching bag in this session, she seriously just instantly was like, wait, no, that actually sounds great. I think I could do the punching bag. And to me, that actually, my eyes widened because I was like, wow, she does have anger and she wants to let it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why I highlighted the story, because I thought, okay, let me now make it objective for her. So she's not just looking at herself where it's going to become too intellectualized.
Yeah.
Let me show her, let's call him Joey. And this is a true story about what happened to me in a facility with somebody, right? And it was something where everybody around saw his anger outburst and their initial reaction was restrain him, literally physically restrain him.
Is it fair to say that I think as a society, even in our mental health field, there is still fear with big emotions. Like people see that kind of response or reaction, that type of anger, that explosion, and they're scared. They're like, lock them up, put them away.
Right.
Yeah.
Bring it back to Rage Against the Machine. There was a reason why I liked listening to that music. And Cult of Personality by Living Colour, go check out that song.
I will.
Was like a psych up song for me for playing sports. Like I wanted something that gave me that energy, that got that out. And I remember playing Rage Against the Machine for my mom, who was a therapist, saying, listen to how angry they are. I love this music. And she was like, why do you want angry music? Like, so they're expressing what I can't.
Yeah.
They're expressing it in this way, in this container. Like, look at that. It's great. So showing Sarah, here's somebody that was really angry and everybody could see it.
Right.
And they thought it was a threat.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is just somebody that doesn't know how to express.
Yeah. They're hurt.
Let me go get the container somewhere. Let's go do this, get this out, and then see what happens. So I wanted to highlight for her, when you express your anger, you can get to the emotions underneath it. Look at what this kid did. He was crying like 5 minutes later.
Wow. Can we just say, what a movie moment? I mean,
right?
Wow. Because let's just be honest, it doesn't happen like that all the time, right? But the fact that it did, like, wow, you really nailed it in that moment. He needed somebody to really just be there with him.
I think how it worked in that moment with him was he and I connected about baseball. I knew that that's something he liked. We had that connection, that common ground.
Yeah.
So when I remember very vividly him smashing the payphone, I don't know that he broke it, but he was slamming the payphone down and so pissed.
Oh,
and I could see that. And the response that everybody around him usually had was contain it.
Yep.
Don't allow it.
Stop it.
And so I could use our connection and go, hey, Joey, can you go lie down for a second and let me see if I can get permission to go throw a baseball? Which, interestingly, everybody there was like, no, you can't have a baseball. Like, you can have a tennis ball. I went, no, tennis ball's not going to work with this kid. No way. He needs to hold a baseball.
Because a tennis ball is like softer or what?
Well, there were cars around in the lot. They thought, here's somebody exhibiting anger.
Yeah.
So he's a threat. Don't give him a baseball.
Yeah.
He could smash a car window. He could cause more damage. He could throw it at you. Well, of course, he's going to throw it at me. He's going to pitch to me. He's a pitcher.
Right.
I can catch. I know how to do that. I don't need protective gear. And I will say, like, when I went out there with him, I'm like, I don't know if this kid can throw a strike. And I'm sitting there as the catcher, like, I got no pads on. I don't have a cup on.
Like, God forbid.
Right? I'm like, oh, all right, Joey, thanks.
That was worst case scenario, really.
Yeah.
Get that anger out, Joey.
Right? But it worked out.
Yeah.
And it worked out because we had that connection. And the real telling moment to me, the movie moment, was, if I can get them to let me throw a baseball, can you just go lie down for a minute? And he did. He complied. Even when he was so angry, he still in him somewhere had that thing where he wanted to connect, where he wanted to express. So I love that moment with him. I love being able to share this moment with Sarah because it's something that she can see. There is some light at the other end of the anger.
Yeah. And she instantly resonated with it. And I think when I'm listening to a story like that as a client, I'm like, yeah, okay. And as a therapist, I'm like, how is this going to land? How is this going to land? And she instantly was like, oh my God, I love that. And it's because she saw herself. I mean, I think the child in her, right, too, that didn't get that. Right. And so, yeah, it landed really well for her. So beautiful, beautiful work, Doug.
Thank you.
Clapping for you. How condescending is that? Okay. Wait, I can't not say this part. After you said the story and you asked her how she felt about it, I just need to say, Sarah is she's so poetic in the way she talks sometimes, and it just really hits me. She said, I put myself in the restraints.
Oh, yeah.
That hit me so hard, and my eyes watered, and I was like, wow. I don't know if you felt it or if you said anything. I can't remember now if you actually commented on that sentiment, but I was like, wow, Sarah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Right. You did put yourself in the restraints, and it's just so poetic. It reminds me, I don't think we've gotten here. This is in the future, but we will get to when she actually does write a poem, right?
Oh, right.
And it is so beyond. It is so touching. I just love it.
Yeah, and great catch. And I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
And in the moment, I think, that line that she said, I put myself in restraints, was so huge.
It still hits me.
It's so much about power and control and controlling yourself. And what we were talking about earlier about being afraid to do something wrong. Yeah. And I went to, I think with her, right, you weren't able to let any of this out. You weren't able to do this. And I think what I said to her was something about, and it wasn't that you were going to get restrained, you were going to get abused.
Right.
So I went that route instead of the, yes, you put yourself in restraints. But that idea was huge and not lost on me. And we revisited it later. But absolutely, if I didn't go that route and I went wow, you put yourself in restraints. Hang on.
I see what you're saying now. Right? Yeah. Because you don't want to maybe go down that narrative with her of like, you did this to yourself kind of thing, right? You want to get to the root of it, right? We're like, oh no, but this started because somebody abused you and they put you in the restraints, the metaphorical restraints, right? Like you had to comply. And now as an adult, you have put the restraints back on yourself, right? Or you haven't shed them because you're scared. I mean,
you haven't shed them. It's not safe.
So
you've been keeping yourself locked up. You've never been. And if you notice, the way that I ended the session with her was, let's just let this percolate. You've had a lot of these things. I was going to get to that.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, I love that. I mean, I literally said at the ending here too, like not giving this list of coping skills and here, do this for the next week, right? Like chart your thoughts or do this or like, snap out of it, God forbid, right? Like just telling her what to do in order to break free of that safety system, right? Like instead it's just think about this, right? Like this is big. This was a big one. Just think about it.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but sometimes you fear not leaving something huge for the client at the end of a session. And I know you do your mic drop moments, and those are like always really good things to ponder and to, percolate on for the rest of the week. And I think it can be a little scary to not give the homework assignment, right? To not give the very direct or explicit or like manualized, if you will, homework assignment that you're taught to do in grad school.
For a lot of therapists, they think I need to give something of value, especially if this client is paying me. I need to give them something and leave them with something. And a lot of times it's actually just showing up and being there is enough. And something like this, where I just want her to explore this new pathway that we're opening up, right? The old ski trail metaphor, like,
the best.
Oh, she's going down a new trail she's never been down. I just want her to ski down that way and just see what's there. Whether it's a boulder, a tree, or she just stops and just looks at the scenery because she's not going down the other way. Fine. Let that just sit and percolate. That is giving her something.
Right. It really is. I think I've gotten to a point now where I can be satisfied with that. Like at the end of a session to just leave someone with kind of, I've been calling with clients like loose homework, right? Like it's not actual homework. You're not being graded on this. But here's just something to think about or a question to ponder, right? Or a new voice to try on, right? Like even if you've got to borrow mine for the time being.
Can you imagine how I think ineffective it would be for this particular client if I said, okay, Sarah, now keep a journal of every time you get angry. Or I want you to practice breathing techniques when we're going to learn how to control your anger. Like, no, it's not about that. It's open exploration.
Yes. So in this case, you are individualizing treatment because for Sarah specifically, you do not want to tell her what to do. She has had a lifetime of that or a childhood of that, right?
Totally.
That makes sense.
And I'm excited to see where she is next week and what did percolate, what did come up. And it's so, I think, interesting to see a client the following week and go, hey, how's your week been? Because it might be, oh my God, all this stuff has been percolating and sitting in here. Or it might be, well, at work, somebody spilled coffee on me and oh my God, here's what happened. What? But we left last week so cool.
Like, it was so profound. I thought that was going to be the thing that changed your life, right? We're always looking for that, or at least me, I'm always looking for that one big aha moment, right? Like this is going to be the thing that just changes everything. But no, I'm constantly reminded like progress is not linear. It is back and forth, 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. Like it just, you never know what's going to happen.
So stick around, come back next week because you never know what's going to happen.
Let's find out.
I'll be here. You'll be here.
I will be here.
Sarah will be here.
Sarah will be here.
And y'all can be here too. And if you have any questions about anything that we've said or comments, feel free to shoot us an email at info@yourmentalbreakdown.com. You can find us on all the social medias except TikTok because Kenzie doesn't like TikTok.
And I rule this thing now.
We're all over. We're all over everywhere. And we're very glad. Jesus, really? Can I talk? All right, Matt, cut that part, right?
No, keep it in.
No.
He's not perfect.
Yes, I am. And we're very glad to be back with you. And we will be back again next week. So until then, bye.
Bye-bye.